This happened 4 years ago. My parents and my husband were visiting my mum's family in Indianapolis. I used to go all the time as a child, but I wouldn't know my way around. I was drinking a lot because my husband had an emotional affair with his ex that lasted 4 months. She tried to break us up. Honestly, I could write a whole post about how she tried to ruin our relationship. So after we saw my family, we went back to the hotel we were staying at. I was so upset, so I said I was going for a smoke, when in fact, I was going to the hotel bar. I had multiple double vodka shots with a splash of orange juice. I was feeling good. The bar was now closing, so I asked the bartender where there was another bar, and she told me to go to the TGIF's. Now, it was about a 10-minute walk. It was after 10 p.m, and I was already drunk. I arrived and went inside. I got myself some more drinks. I don't remember how I had gotten outside, but I was smoking and there were other people outside with me. Suddenly, I was being dragged into a car. I don't know how long it had even been. I was so drunk and I couldn't do anything or even realise how screwed I was. Now, during this time, my husband realised that I was missing and woke up my mum in my parents' room. He tracked my phone to the TGI parking lot. My mum and my husband got to my phone, but I wasn't there. Then my mum saw this man trying to get me into his car. She got out of the Uber they were in and started screaming to let me go. This creep thought my mum was just a stranger trying to save me. He didn't believe her that I was her daughter. I remember him yelling, "How do I know she's your daughter?" or something like that. The creep had grabbed me so hard I had bruises. My mum even threatened to call 911, which I was told later. He let go of me and then drove off with his back passenger door open. I'm convinced I'd have been raped at the very least. I was unfamiliar with the area. I was drunk, and I barely realised how bad the situation was. This happened about 5 years ago. I was around 16, 17 years old, and I always enjoyed walking. I would spend at least an hour a day walking the roads where I live. So one day I was doing my usual walk on my normal route and I was walking down my street where my house is. I then took a right out to the main street and I followed it until I got to the end. There I would cross the crosswalk and retrace my steps to go back home. On this particular day, I was about 20 feet from where I would leave the main road on my way back home. Now, I had my headphones in blasting music, as always, which I know can be a bad habit, as I'm a young female that has been put in some sketchy situations while going on my walks in the past, such as being chased and followed by men. But since it was daylight and roads were pretty busy, I figured I was safe. But man, was I ever off with that assumption. So as I was about to pass the entrance of a side street before leaving this main road, a black Ford F-150 pulled up. He stopped and gestures for me to walk in front of him. So I do so. I was about to go on my merry way when I barely heard someone trying to talk to me. I turned down my music, taking out my headphones. As I looked to see the man in the black Ford, still stopped at the side road. I looked at him puzzled, trying to figure out if he was talking to me. I pointed to myself, and he grinned, nodding. "What's a beautiful girl like you doing out here?" he said to me. I laughed awkwardly. Walking. I mean, that should have been obvious. "It's a beautiful day for that," he then said to me as if he's trying to make small talk. "Yeah," I said, before turning around and trying to continue my way home. The men then yelled out for me to wait. I stopped and turned around, just trying to be polite, even though the encounter was odd. I didn't see too many red flags yet. The man then went off saying things such as, "You're so beautiful. You know you have a really nice body. This hot weather is nice for a hot girl." I started to get really uncomfortable at this point. This man had to be in his 40s. I then thought to bring up the fact that I was a minor, as I've been mistaken for being older than I actually am in the past. And by saying this, I really hoped that it would get him to back off, but it didn't. He then told me that it was okay and called me sweetheart and asked me to get into his truck. This is when I started to panic. Red flags were shooting up everywhere. Stranger danger. I nervously laughed, looking around at the cars to see if anyone had noticed anything that was happening, but nobody did. I told him that it's fine and that my house wasn't far. He then went on to convince me to still get into the truck. He said it was okay just to get in his truck and he was taking me home. I told him no, but he didn't listen. I turned to walk away as he called out, "Come on, just get in with me." As I was walking away, I really hoped he'd just drive off somewhere, but he didn't. He drove very close, just following me, complimenting me and trying to pressure me to get into his truck. So I pulled out my phone while still walking, lifted it to my ear, pretending to loudly answer a call, pretending to talk to my dad and letting him know what street I was on and that I'd be home really soon. I then went on to say that, "Okay, you'll be waiting outside for me," hoping that this guy would hear me and back off. After he heard me say that, I heard tires screeching. I ran back home and made it within about 6 minutes, actually calling my dad on the way, who had made a call to the police, who showed up shortly after and took my statement and description. It turns out that there was a man on the loose in my area who was exposing himself to minors and trying to pick them up for sexual acts. They never actually found out who exactly it was. This was a few years ago, and I'd entered the University of Lausanne to start my medical studies. I'd just arrived in the city and even into the country. I was very excited to start my year and to discover uni and to meet new people. Everything was going great until the end of the third week. It was Friday night and around 9 p.m. I leave the library and I say goodbye to my friends and start to go home. Now, the pace of work was already very intense, so we'd been working all day and I was in a rush to get home. This was my favourite part of the day because I put on my music, take the subway and then the train, and it gives me a chance to rest. Anyway, that night it was cold, so there was no one left outside, and it takes me about 7 minutes to walk from the library to the subway. I'm walking quietly with my music in my ears when all of a sudden I get a shiver that runs through my body from head to toe. I start to feel uncomfortable as if someone was watching me. And at that point, I pause my music. I decide I better not turn around, just in case the person is trying to be really inconspicuous. And if I notice them, something might happen. I don't want to run either because I'm not sure if I can run faster, and I don't even know where to go. Now, at this point, I pass a glass building, so I thought I might have a look inside, pretend I'm fixing my hair. Now, I quickly glance in the corner of my eye. My blood runs cold. There is definitely someone walking a few feet behind me in a hoodie. I try to reassure myself that he's just finished work and he's also going home, that he's cold, and that explains why he's wearing the hoodie. But I didn't see a backpack, and there are no houses for civilians around. I decided to send my mum a text message and ask her to come and pick me up outside the building. Now, at this point, I didn't know what else to do, so I decided to go and wait inside the building until my mum came to get me. Now, I opened the door, took off my headphones, and walked down the stairs to go and find a place to hide. We entered this building by the 3rd floor. Now, I thought I was out of trouble until I heard the door open. And it was the same door that I'd came through. I started to run down the stairs, and then I could hear the footsteps of somebody running down behind me. I was sure that he was running faster than me and that he was going to catch me. I really hoped that I wasn't going to run into a dead end, considering I didn't even really know where in the building I was or where to go. Now, looking back, it kind of reminds me of that scene in The Shining with the labyrinth. So now I thought maybe if I open a window and continue down the hallway, he might think I've jumped out. As I've opened the door, I've walked into this huge auditorium, and then I went to find a place to hide. It was dark. I went down the stairs and I hid under a desk and put my phone on silent. Now, my mum was texting me, asking me where I was and what was going on, and saying that she's on her way with my dad. I texted her back saying, "He's in the building. He's looking for me. Please come quickly." I hid under that desk thinking that I was screwed and that my hiding place sucked because he was going to find me any second. Then I heard a thud and a huge scream. I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life as I was when I heard that scream. For 15 minutes, my mum was sending me messages telling me just to hang on and that they will be there soon. At the end of those long 15 minutes, waiting for him to find me, I finally got the messages from my mum when she says she's here with the police. They're going to enter the building. They just needed to know where I was. I tell them I'm on the second floor because I actually had no idea what room I was in or which way I was even going. Now, after 2 minutes, I hear the door of the auditorium, and thankfully it was the police who'd come to get me. Once I got out, they took my statement and said they would check the university management the next day. They contacted us and they said they saw on the surveillance cameras that there was definitely someone who had followed me when I entered the building, but there were no cameras inside. And you also couldn't see the guy's face, therefore you didn't know who it was. They just said that security was going to now do patrols at night and advised me to have someone walk with me when I went out at that time. We never heard about it again.